way up in the middle of the air. Easy goes on the wheel, way in the middle of the air. Easy goes on the wheel, way up in the middle of the air. Easy goes on the wheel, way in the middle of the air. Easy goes on the wheel, wheel in the middle of the air. Easy goes on the wheel, way in the middle of the air. The big wheel run, run, big wheel run, and the little wheel run, run, yes, our wheel and our wheel, way in the middle of the air. By the time my brother has a long call, way in the middle of the air. Your front lights and hands are getting long, way in the middle of the air. Oh, say that where the love puts you, way in the middle of the air. If you are mine, sitting on you, way in the middle of the air. Easy goes on the wheel, way up in the middle of the air. Easy goes on the wheel, way up in the middle of the air. The big will run my big, and the little will run my race up down our wheel and our wheel, way in the middle of the air. Some go to church for the singing, some go to church for the singing, shout, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Before 6 months, they all turned out, way in the middle of the air. I couldn't hear nobody pray. Oh, Lord, I couldn't hear nobody pray. Oh, way down yonder by myself, and I couldn't hear nobody pray. I couldn't hear nobody pray, and I couldn't hear nobody pray. Oh, way down yonder by myself, and I couldn't hear nobody pray. 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 I couldn't hear nobody pray. And I couldn't hear nobody pray. Oh, way down yonder by myself, and I couldn't hear nobody pray. 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 I couldn't hear nobody pray. And I couldn't hear nobody pray. Oh, way down yonder by myself, and I couldn't hear nobody pray. I couldn't hear nobody pray, and I couldn't hear nobody pray. Oh, way down yonder by myself, and I couldn't hear nobody pray. I couldn't hear nobody pray, and I couldn't hear nobody pray. Oh, way down yonder by myself. Behold the star, behold the star of yonder, behold the star. It is the star of Bethlehem. Behold the star, behold the star of yonder, behold the star. It is the star of Bethlehem.
As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because a servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another.
This is our commandment, that we love one another. And we come and gather together to worship the source of this love, the ineffable mystery who loves us unconditionally. And you are welcome to First Presbyterian Church of Corvallis on this February 20th, 2022. We affirm you, we honor who you are as one created in the image of God, and know that we consider all who join us as those who belong as children of God. We are online only today. And as you know, we had originally scheduled to be in person today, but we have postponed this until next week. As has been the case for many businesses and organizations, our plans were disrupted by COVID. My son tested positive earlier this week, and this greatly increased the probability that I may test positive. Knowing that it was probably too late to not be exposed, although we still were careful after we found out. And knowing that I was the only pastor who was going to be here on the 20th, having already given Sharon a blessing to take on another commitment, and I didn't want to disrupt that commitment for her if I were to test positive before the service. And that would have thrown us into a lot of chaos, trying to have our first in-person service, and yet the pastor can't be there. And so we thought it best to postpone. And so that's why we're online only today, and I hope you understand. I'm fine, and as of recording this, and this is recorded, I have tested negative, though do have some slight symptoms, so we'll see. Maybe my body's just fighting it off. But this is the reality we live in, and it's teaching us all lessons about flexibility and learning how to pivot, right? So we do plan, though, next week to have our service on the 27th, and we hope that you'll join us either online or in person. And afterwards, we'll have our congregational meeting. This week, we'll send out a link for members for a Zoom to join after the service is streamed to join us in the meeting if you're not going to be there in person. And members will need to vote on some things, pastor's terms of call, confirming some actions we took by email as far as officers and whatnot. But But we are presenting different information about our budget and celebration of the past year, and there are things to celebrate. So we're streaming it, and if you're not needing to vote, if you're not a member, then you can just tune in through the stream, and we'll be streaming it the same way we stream the service at the same places. So I hope you'll join us. To gather in person next week and in any week for the time being, you must be vaccinated, as Session has instituted this policy, as well as provide proof of vaccination, either by sending it into the church ahead of time or bringing it with you. And you can bring a photo of it on your phone. Now, if there's a chance that the usher checking won't know who you are, if you're newer, and just probably good practice to have your ID or to include the ID with the photo on your phone. And you're welcome to our services. And it's important we ask, though, that you respect and honor our wishes and our policy. And if that's an issue, then please stream it and stay home. Thank you. Also, next week at 4 o'clock in Dennis Hall, we welcome our Children, Youth, and Families Ministries welcomes families to our Holy Troublemakers gathering. And we sent out materials about this. And so if you didn't get it and you're interested in this, contact the office for more information about this and how you may participate with your family. Well, our challenge offering is for Friendship with Cambodia. If you sign up with our weekly email, you can receive more information about Friendship with Cambodia and all of our announcements. And so I encourage you to get our weekly email. Well, this is Black History Month, and we are trying to highlight and honor the contributions not only to the church, but to the community and of those Black Americans who have brought such richness to our faith, our church, our communities. And so today we're going to have this prayer, which I've used before because it's just one of my favorite prayers, from a theologian and also a poet, Howard Thurman. And this is Open Unto Me. So let us prepare our hearts for worship with this prayer. Open unto me, light for my darkness. Open unto me, courage for my fear. Open unto me, hope for my despair. Open unto me, peace for my turmoil. Open unto me, joy for my sorrow. Open unto me, strength for my weakness. Open unto me, wisdom for my confusion. Open unto me, forgiveness for my sins. Open unto me, tenderness for my toughness. Open unto me, love for my hates. Open unto me, thyself for myself. Lord, Lord, open unto me. Amen. Well, if we're going to transition to music, before I do so, I just wanted to introduce who you're about to hear, who was able to be here in Oregon, at Oregon State, and record a piece, which we have permission to use. Actually, you'll see Beth Ashley playing the piano for this solo. This is Tesfa Wandamagnu. And Tesfa Wandamagnu serves as the conductor for the Viking Chorus and the Chapel Choir, at St. Olaf College. He also serves as the guest artistic director of one of North America's largest LGBTQ plus choirs, Minnesota's One Voice Mixed Chorus. Tesfa maintains an active voice studio and teaches music and social justice with the goal of helping bridge the gap of social injustice through music, dialogue, and inspiring participants to take action in their communities. Juan Dumagnu previously served as the director of choral ministries at Westminster Presbyterian Church of Minneapolis, where he co-founded the Justice Choir movement. So, enjoy this and let it be a part of your worship.
Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows but Jesus. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Oh, yes, Lord. Sometimes I'm almost to the ground. Oh, yes, Lord. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrows. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. If you get there before I do, oh yes, Lord, tell all my friends I'm coming too. Oh yes, Lord. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows but Jesus. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory, hallelujah.
Before I read today's scripture from the Gospel according to Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 38, I want a little bit of a disclaimer, because this passage has probably some of the most beautiful concepts and teachings, things at the core of the gospel. But it's also a passage that's been abused, misused, to put people and keep people in harm's way. This passage has been used by pastors and people of faith to tell women who have been in abusive relationships to stay in those abusive relationships, to keep their kids in those abusive relationships and places and unsafe places. And I want to say categorically that this passage is not saying that you have to stay in a position, in a place where you are being harmed or could be harmed, or where your children or others could be harmed. And that we put up boundaries, and that the love that we are supposed to have does not mean we are supposed to be punching bags. So I want to be clear about that as we read this scripture. Hear the word of the Lord. But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and anyone who takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. For he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. But be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. The living word. You know, I think many think of this passage or these words, even if they can't place them, they know that Jesus said things like this. And whether they're Christians or not, people around the world, this is what they think of what a Christian should be. Followers of Jesus who said to love your enemies, to give people what they need, to turn the other cheek, to be merciful, to be forgiving, to not judge or be or condemn. And this is also then why many look at Christians and Christians' behaviors and rhetoric and think it's full of hypocrites, because this is a very high bar that Jesus sets, one we all fail at, and one we don't necessarily represent all the time. Now, there are many, countless selfless acts of love done by people who call Jesus their Lord and aspire to live by these commands. And these acts and these people are easily forgotten and fade into the history books, if they even were ever known, because people didn't do this to get credit. They didn't love like this and then tweet about it. I think about Dutch Christians during World War II who hid many Jews and others who were being sought after during the genocide that Germany wrought, as well as many others who did love and even loved their enemies. But those don't get the limelight, right? The loud voices, especially these days, kind of overtake amid all the protest and demands of those who call themselves Christians because they think their beliefs are being walked on or limited or prevented or prohibited or compromised. Those who have allowed their beliefs to become more important than the command to love, even if it means at some personal sacrifice. It's become clear to me that one's religion or beliefs don't necessarily make a difference. Sometimes, in the whole of humanity, it seems to me that there are people of all religions and no religions who strive to love like this as Jesus described, and who are just wired to love like this, or have chosen to love like this. And there are people of all religions and of no religion who don't love like this, who think more of themselves. And then the rest of us in the mix in between. We certainly value historical figures who love like this, and we lift them up. The civil rights movement had many different voices. There were voices that were not as nonviolent as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., for instance. And most know probably of the most public disagreement between Dr. King and Malcolm X. Now, many of you would say you believe in self-defense. If someone were coming to harm you or your family, you would believe in self-defense, even if it meant being violent. And I know this is my first instinct, would be my first instinct to do whatever I needed to do to protect my kids, my wife, to fight back and use violence if necessary. That would be my first instinct. And this actually was Malcolm's argument. I remember a high school teacher who did an experiment with us when we were going to study the civil rights movement. We were studying the different voices, including Malcolm X's and Dr. King's. But before we got into that, he opened up a discussion about, was it okay to use violence to defend yourself if you were being attacked, or your family was being attacked, or people you loved were being attacked by an enemy? And I think all of us high schoolers, I think just about all of us, said yes. And then he revealed, before we go into the lesson, know that you are probably more aligned with Malcolm X than Dr. King. And that was an eye-opener to me, because I thought, for sure, if he had started and asked, who do you align with more, Malcolm X or Dr. King? Most of us probably would have said Martin Luther King. Aligning with Jesus, aligning with nonviolence, is pretty radical. It's hard. And Jesus did not defend himself. Quaker belief does believe in nonviolence. And it had a great influence on Martin Luther King Jr. He was Baptist, yes, I know. But a lot of this Quaker foundation came and was supported and encouraged by someone who didn't get a lot of attention or credit in history. Bayard Rustin. He was raised a Quaker, and he had a deep commitment to nonviolence. An African-American raised a Quaker who had a deep commitment to nonviolence. And he helped Martin. He was in the inside circle with Martin and helped form how could they practice nonviolence, and helped solidify Martin's commitment to this and seeing the power of nonviolence. And as we know, nonviolence became such a powerful thing because it was such a contrast to the violence that was used by white supremacists and by the white supremacy, the power to control and to try to keep people in line. And seeing that contrast woke a lot of people up, people of all races, to see what was going on. Bayard was not too popular of a figure, even among other civil rights workers. They weren't too comfortable with him there because he was homosexual. Not all civil rights leaders were sympathetic. Fortunately, the LGBTQ plus movement has come a long way, but during the civil rights movement, it was not on the radar of many. And yet, Martin tried to protect him, according to Bayard, and was saddened by the way some fellow civil rights leaders kind of wanted to push him out of the circle. But he remained involved, he remained committed, and had a great impact in this idea that the nonviolence could be a powerful force, a testimony to the fact to help their cause forward. Bayard often spoke of where this stemmed from, and it came from his commitment to this view that all of humanity was one, that we were all connected, much more than we saw, and that division, estrangement, was not the reality, but the falsehood that was ripping humanity apart, the sin that was ripping us all apart. We were one. So if you're violent towards another, you're violent towards yourself. And I think that's the root. This is the root. Whether you're one who strives to live into this kind of love that Jesus speaks of and teaches and commands. It's not religions or ideologies, but whether one has this abiding sense that we are all one. Everything else stems from that. I think that's the core of Jesus' teaching, the core of the gospel, to do to others as you would have them do unto you, to love your neighbor as yourself. The sheep and the goats, if you've done it to one, you've done it to me. Jesus is constantly bringing before us this picture, this underlying reality that we are not separate. We are one. That's God's reality. And everything, every belief, every religion stems from whether you really abide by that or whether you're stuck in a vision of humanity as estranged from one another or divided, or that someone truly is apart from you. And there are many who only see estrangement, the separation, who believe in the importance of keeping divisions and individualism. Often, these people are divided within their own selves, self-loathing or hating, at war with part of themselves, suppressing part of themselves. And that division and judgment just spews outwards to others. This is a mystery, how we're all one. It is a mystery. And I can't tell you how that works. And I know we're raised to think that we are individual, separate, sovereign. But I really do believe at the root of reality, the reality beyond the ones that we see with our five senses, is ultimately connection as one conscious, one Christ mind. And that is who we are and meant to be. And if that can become more and more the root of our own world outlook, our own world view, our own understanding, then it becomes easier to see the importance of what Jesus is teaching here, of loving our enemies, of wanting the best for others, wanting people to be healed and restored, not just punished and condemned. Because we heal and restore part of ourselves when others are healed and restored. When others find healing, when others begin to love, we only increase within ourselves the reality of God's love and who we are meant to be. I really don't know how you could even begin to love your enemies, to love as Jesus taught us to love, without an outlook that we're all connected. Jesus reveals that we are one with the whole, with God. And so we are one with another. Many of the systems and economies of the day rely on us having a different, more divided outlook of humanity. And those systems strive to squash people's awakening to any notion of a universal oneness, as they squashed Jesus, as they squashed his disciples, as they infiltrated the church and silenced preachers. However, I do believe that people are waking up still, and that this is the reality. So it cannot be silenced, it cannot be squashed, and will continue to rise again and again and again. We are one. We are one. And we can awaken to this. And therefore know, as Jesus says, know. The more we understand and live into this oneness, the more and closer we will experience the divine, the mystery, the God Most High. Bayard Rustin called those who stood for this oneness of humanity, and I will add oneness with all of creation, against these systems of estrangement and division. He called them holy troublemakers, and that's where the theme of the curriculum we have comes from. The curriculum of the families will be studying. We are called to be holy troublemakers by being those who stand in the tares, in the divisions that we have created, that have been created, and that others try to create. To stand in them and declare and to sing and to act as people who are one. May it be so. Amen.
The writer of our prayer this morning is Cole Arthur Riley. She serves as a spiritual teacher in residence at Cornell University. She is a young African-American woman who is a writer, a liturgist, and a speaker, and her first book is just coming out in a few days. She describes herself as someone who is deeply involved in the contemplative life that is marked by embodiment, emotion, and justice. Her writings remind me of a statement that someone once said, that we must be honest enough to not expect truth to be painless. We must be honest enough to not expect truth to be painless, and compassionate enough to get into trouble. Please pray with me. God of the multitude, we praise you for being a God who contains the diversity of personhood in one. In your very being, you possess a sacred community where each part is distinct and beautiful and necessary. Make our community like you, that we would no longer be content with the bland flavor of sameness, that we would no longer use language of unity and oneness, as a veil for the suppression of voice, body, and culture. Be near to those who have offered up the particularity of their stories to bring about restoration, only to be met with accusations of divisiveness and unkindness. Lord, let our kindness be marked by telling the truth. And if division follows, let it be for our own protection, that you would lead us into spaces that see and honor that we are not the same. And it is very good. I invite you to breathe in God's love, to exhale God's love, to breathe in who you are, to exhale compassion for others. Breathe in courage to hear the truth, and exhale the courage to speak the truth. And again, breathing in God's love for you, and exhaling God's love for the world. And together we say, Amen. Friends, believe it or not, Lent begins in a couple of weeks. It has been our tradition to offer a theme, often a devotional, and also opportunities for study or small group exploration. This year we are using the theme Good Enough, and it is being influenced by the book called Good Enough, 40-ish devotionals for a life of imperfection. We'll be exploring such things as we are a group project, ordinary lives can be holy, and lots of things can be medicine. The author is Kate Bowler. She is a professor at Duke University. She has also had several books on the New York Times bestseller list for her exploration around faith, belief, and life, the ups and downs of life. We will be offering, Matt and I, 2 opportunities during the week for small group conversations. We also want you to know that there is a very well-written group discussion guide so that if the times that we offer are not good for you, you may also find another time to gather folks together. We will be providing a way for you to find each other through our weekly MailChimp. Also, if you're already part of a small group, you might want to go ahead and use that group discussion guide as well. You'll see, you may also call the church office if you have questions about being a part of a small group or purchasing the book. Again, all of this information is in our weekly email, but again, you can call the church office. Also, we do have funds to help offset the purchase of the book. If you would like to partake of those, please let us know. I would say it's pretty important to have the book if you want to be a part of conversations. If you're not going to be a part of a small group, you may still appreciate the book anyway. Now, watch a very short video that introduces the theme that we will be exploring together.
Now, look to God and love God, and God will show you Christ. Look to Christ and love Christ, and Christ will show you your neighbor. Look to your neighbor and love your neighbor, and your neighbor will show you yourself. Look to yourself and love yourself, and you will see God. Go in peace.